So add up the positive ones that I read
Determined, attentive,
and the negative.
We're just adding, you said?
Yeah, just add.
add.
So you should have interested, excited, strong, enthusiastic, proud, alert, inspired, determined, attentive, and active, one number. That's your positive emotion, positive experience. And then your negative is distressed, upset, guilty, scared, hostile, irritable, ashamed, nervous, jittery, and afraid.
And everything that you did will still be positive, right?
And you use
Right,
the
you should have
scale.
two numbers.
Okay.
Use the scale to add them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So we're gonna see who has more positive than negative.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm gonna do fear and
I don't even know what it is.
That's why
You
I
have
asked
to
you.
use the
Hold on.
scale, 1.2.3,
I'm not
4,
confused.
5.
From a grade paper?
Yes,
Because
We adding, we do division or anything? Okay.
No, we're just comparing two raw numbers. Positive versus negative. You want me to read those again? So 10 of each.
Stars and negative straight lines.
So now add those up based on the scale. Remember, very slightly is 1, a little is 2, moderately is 3, quite a bit is 4, extremely is 5.
So we add up
Those are
the
the,
positive.
those are the, what you call
Add up
that,
the
right?
positives,
Yeah.
and then
those
you're
are
gonna add up the
minus are
negatives. There should be 10 of
Because that makes
each.
it easier for
The
you.
most
Say
you
what?
can get is
I feel like a
50-50.
straight line. And that'll be your
So we're
negative.
gonna see who has more negative than positive and who has more positive than negative.
And then I add up the negatives, right? And I'm adding the positives.
Oh, you know the assignment, you just don't know what's what.
Yeah, I was just like, wait, I'm sorry. Oh,
Jittery is like
no
this.
problem.
I've learned to control it, but yeah.
Okay, who has positive and negative?
We did a month.
What do you have?
Who's on the website?
Positive 40, negative 12.
Positive 40, negative 12. That's great. Do you think that's accurate?
I think so.
Are you more of a positive person?
I think
I was going to.
So Pedro has 40 positive and 12 negative. So that's more than double of your
so.
positive.
Another test.
Okay. What was that?
I'll do another test.
No, I think that's great. So your positive experiences. Do you feel that you have positive traits? Strengths, resilience, grit, self-work? Okay. And do you believe in things like social justice, civility?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a lot of the pillars of positive
There's
psychology.
always, like I said, room for improvement, but I do feel, I guess I'm in a place where I'm very comfortable.
You're in a good place. What was your most positive emotion?
Alert and attentive.
Alert and attentive, okay. And that's probably because you have to be for work, I would assume.
And the kids, yeah.
Okay. And what was your negative emotion?
My negative,
Your most negative?
I have a whole bunch.
Yeah, me too.
Upset, scared, almost all of them are ones, yes. Scared, upset, scared, hostile.
They're very slightly
Like,
or
yeah, the one,
extremely?
like the very, is that what you meant? Like the,
Oh, out of the negatives, which ones had the highest score?
Which one had the highest
oh,
score?
I'm sorry, hold on. The negative, hold on. Distress and guilt, 2. That was my-
Distress and guilt?
Yes, 2.
Okay, what do you feel guilty about?
More time for the kids. Yeah.
Okay, so you would,
I'm still working on it. I plan a vacation, so I know I won't be here for the last 3 days.
okay. So you plan a vacation, where are you going?
I'm going to Mexico. I'm gonna go fishing. So
Very nice. Well, you had been talking about that months ago,
Correct.
that you wanted to go.
It was something that I
And now you're
had in mind, yeah, a while back, but
So
we have the
then you got a
vacation.
lot of work to do on week 3.
I should be able to turn that into this weekend, everything. So I don't have to
Okay,
do
well, that's his
anything.
alert and
Right.
attentiveness
Exactly.
will keep him busy. Anybody have more negative than positive? Okay, Paula.
45,
45 negative, and how much positive?
12.
12, okay. Why do you feel more negative than positive? What were some of the high scoring? That's practically close to a 5 for all of them
Yeah.
almost. Which was the one that you didn't give a 5 to?
No, I mean,
It would have been
Negative.
50, so something has to.
out of the negative,
Mhm.
no, they were all 5.
Oh, so then that's a 50, because there's 10 times 5. That's fine. And of the positive, which one scored the highest?
Out of the positives, it was probably interested,
Interested, okay.
inspired,
Inspired, okay.
um,
What are you inspired by?
myself and my son. Like, just to do what I'm doing and continue.
Okay, and what about you inspires you?
The fact that I actually have the courage and want.
And you have courage and desire to do what you're doing. It's okay. How does that feel to say that about yourself?
So
You have courage.
I have more
You have more what?
than want.
The want, the desire? Okay. That's a fuel. That's a big fuel. Because a lot of us want to go outside. A lot of us want to eat healthy. A lot of us want to do a lot of things and we don't.
But I want more for me than for my son. Like, I put more of the effort towards me. I don't know if that's like.
Of course, because that's, at this age, it's important. You're his role model and you're his caretaker. When you have small children, especially under the age of 7, before the personality develops, what you do for yourself is more important because it's teaching them. They are under your energetic umbrella. Okay? So I always say, for those of you who have children less than 7, you're lucky you still have some time. Doesn't mean that you can't afterwards. Remember, everyone is a mirror. So the moment you start changing, that other person starts changing, and that even goes for your child. Yes?
I wanted to ask about Paula's, I know she's having so much conflict with her mom. Could we try to schedule different times to be around the house where our mom is? A way to try to mitigate the constant.
Trust me, I do that. I ask her also if she's leaving the house, and she got pissed off at that too. But she always has plans to go to church and stuff, which is like the best time. And also this weekend, well, my brother was in the hospital this whole week, so I really didn't have to see her. I had the house to myself, so it's like awesome.
Okay, so that's a recommendation.
Right.
Is
That's
that,
absolutely a
is
recommendation.
that what you were trying to do?
Yeah, you can try to set up a timetable. I don't know how busy you are, I don't know your job, I don't know, like school hours, the time that you have
No,
for
I
yourself
have-
and time for, that your mom has, I don't know if she works or anything.
No,
that-
she does work and she's more involved in church and
Right,
everything.
right,
But I don't work. I'm a parent and a student.
right.
So I just have to make more time for my son.
Well, I think what I hear you saying is spending time maybe out of the house when she's
Yeah.
not there. So you
Exactly.
can take your son to the park, or you
Yeah,
can take him to
exactly.
Chuck E. Cheese, or you can
That's
be
what
with him,
I noticed. I
but
have
not
to do.
around her. that could be a recommendation, absolutely, yeah. And why do you feel that there's so much negative? Because if you have such a strong desire, what makes you feel that you're so negative?
My mom.
Okay, again, an external factor. We are talking about positive experiences, positive traits. Do you
It's
remember when we did the values in action sheet?
Yeah.
What
I don't
did you
remember,
pick?
but-
What were your strengths? That entire activity was you had to pick your strength from each of the categories.
I remember I had like, what, if you have it with you?
I didn't bring it, but my point is that if you give somebody an activity where they're forced
Yeah.
to look at the positive, they pick the positive. Not one person here didn't pick anything and say, nope, I have none of these. The assignment was pick one from each column. No one said to me, oh, I can't, I don't have any of these. So you did find values that you have.
Yeah, like I find myself being like all happy and stuff. And then once she gets home, it's like, it's a whole different me.
Did you
Okay.
ever
Like a
think
hurricane.
about doing counseling with the priest? Like, just because I
I'm-
think it's communication styles is what's,
She tells me that she'll go to counseling even if it's not with the priest, but that I have to look for it. Like
So-
she never says, oh, she never, like I don't feel like she puts in the effort
well,
to try.
well, see,
Or
if
to
you,
want.
if you have someone else from the outside, and you go and you find someone and say, I'm having trouble communicating,
Right.
and that would be like the main reason. So what that person would do would be ask questions and observe your communication
No,
styles.
right. But what I'm saying is like she'll tell me to go and look for it, and I'm like, okay. I'm a little lazy. I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like why the hell am I gonna do it if
Well, and I
she's
think that's
gonna-
more than laziness.
Yeah.
I think you're feeling defeated that you don't think it's going to serve.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
you don't
Right.
expect anything to come.
Because if she tells me that the psychologists lie to me or are telling me the complete opposite of what I should be doing, then it defeats the purpose of me going and finding someone for us.
Now, with
But
this
you're-
particular client, sorry, she is really focused that she's labeling herself bad based on the opinion of one person. There's a lot of work to do to bring this person away from the weight and the importance that that one person has. Granted, it's our parent. The parents are everything. Every single person placed in your situation, and my model is representation of your parents. But in this particular case, Paula is completely putting everything on what her mother thinks of her.
So she cannot move away right now.
She can't
She
move
had-
away.
It's like it's not a long term, but it's a kind of mid-range term, right? So if she sets up a schedule, I'm going back to the schedule because I think it might help. If you know when she's gonna be back, you can try to find an activity where you can go away with your kids, so you don't spend so much time interacting with your mom, and that way you can stay away, maybe the whole day. You just come back in the evening and you're just gonna take care of your son, put him to sleep, and then you just go to sleep, and
But
that's
So
it.
I have a
that's-
feeling though that she'd say to you, you know, that you're not spending enough time at home, or, you know, I never see you, or I never see my grandson because you're always out.
So we have
No.
strategies that we can offer the client like this, but the core thing, the core thought process is that her self-worth lays outside of herself. That it's with someone else, and today it's her mother. Maybe next month it's her husband. Maybe 3 years from now it's her son. This is the core issue here, that someone else is determining what you are worth. We need to move you from an extrinsic motivation to an intrinsic motivation,
Yeah.
where your motivation and your self-worth comes from within. So there's lack of self-love here. There's lack of self-worth.
You know, I have virtue of courage. So.
Virtue of courage, and she said it earlier that she was courageous.
And virtue of humanity.
Okay, humanity, so you care about what others think. There's the community institution trait.
And I think, virtue of wisdom.
And virtue of wisdom.
I think wisdom was the most.
Okay. So she's wise, she's courageous, and she cares about other people.
And those are all internal things that you can grab onto to value yourself, as opposed to thinking about what somebody else thinks.
And it's your courage that brings you to class every day. It's your courage that has you submit your work all the time. It's your courage that has you be such a good mother. It's all of that. And the wisdom that you know that doing these things is going to create a better life for you and your son.
And Paula, the reason that you feel like this and you have these emotions is because you're a good person and you care. You care too much. You care
But
too
she's
much.
got a lot of all or none thinking. Mom's
Right.
the angel, she's the devil.
Exactly.
You are working so hard to live up to that expectation of devil that it's
Because
getting harder and harder for you.
it's not that. It's like, I think now that I've been taking these classes and I've been evaluating my mom more, and I've been seeing and understanding more her relationship with her mom, that she doesn't even talk to her, runs away from her, that I think she puts a lot of pressure on me to try to be, I guess, something that she wasn't. Like when you talk about how our parents, or someone said it in class, how our parents want to have us be them in a sense. So I think she's seen my negative part of her in me. That's what
And that's very common. That's oftentimes where parents punish their children, is because they don't want their negative aspects, their bad bucket items, to come out in their kid. The thing is that at the moment of conception, you already have the good and the bad bucket items. But the parent doesn't necessarily know that, A, doesn't necessarily believe that, B,
Yeah.
and doesn't necessarily mean that even if they do know it, like me, that we're gonna keep from, talking to our kids and saying, don't ever be this, don't do that. I tell my daughter all the time, you don't have to be that. You're not the kid's mother. You're this. Don't take care of me.
Yeah.
Well, who taught her that? Duh.
Yeah.
So we tend to, as parents, harp on the negative because, and that's the whole premise of positive psychology. And my mom used to say this, lo bueno no se dice, the good stuff you don't have to tell about. No, bitch, you do.
Yeah.
Because we need to know that we're good people. We need to know we're doing right things. But that's why positive psychology is so difficult. Because we're so used to a culture of what's wrong, of the negativity, of what we need fixing, not what we're doing right. So it's a whole mindset for all of us. I want to just address this issue because it's an important issue in research. So thank you for the question, and then we'll wrap up. So Paula wants to start a club. What she really wants to do is perform a research experiment. Okay? So I will find out about the lying. At FIU, there is a professor who does study lying in one of her labs, and I'll get you that information. That's for children. However, what Paula is suggesting is that she wants to know if parents lie or exaggerate on a story when they're talking about their child, or if the child lies and exaggerates when they're talking about their parent. So I asked her, what was her hypothesis? What's your hypothesis?
Like I said, I feel like it's 0 to 100 with the parent as well as with the child. So I'm guessing we have to make them meet in the middle and try to
But the hypothesis is, what do you think the study will find? What do you think the findings will be? And you said it before.
that either the parent is giving in too much or saying less, as opposed, or if the child is doing the opposite like that.
Okay, so what you mentioned before, just to make sure that I got it right, is that you think that under both circumstances, if the child is asked something, that he or she will exaggerate and put the parent in the negative light, and if the parent is asked something, he or she will put the child in the negative light. That the outcome would be the same,
Right, yeah,
both people lie.
but asked or told also, like if they're being asked to, it's mostly if they're being told. Cause like for example, the day my mom threw that whole shit in my face, and yesterday I was angry and I told her, I don't need to change, you're the one that needs to change. So it's more like that, like if you're being told by your child or you're being told by the parent who is making it like worse than what it really is, whether it's the parent or the child.
Okay, so, but you believe that the
Yeah.
parent does it equally as much as the child does it?
Right.
Is that your hypothesis?
I feel like the child does it more than the
Oh, you do
parent.
feel that,
Yeah.
okay, so you have a hypothesis. When you want to do a study, and this is for your research methods, but this is, if you're going to go on to a master's degree, and this is for when you read articles, and this week, she's going to tell you about the annotated bibliography, you have to find articles. This is how it works. When a scientist, when a psychologist decides they want to study something, they have to come up with a hypothesis. What do you think is going to happen? She assumes that the children are going to make it worse or are going to lie more, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your hypothesis, and you write that in your paper. And then you have to start designing a study that gives both parents and children airtime so that they can be put in a study setting so that you can prove it true or false. And then in your paper, in your research article, you write, we proved it right, why, how, this is what we did, or we proved it wrong, this is why, this is how, this is what we did, okay? So it's not really a club, what you're talking about is actually a research project, a
Right.
research study.
Because
Okay.
I saw like this thing where they took the parents behind screen and the little kids, and they asked the kids like, what would you like your parents to do more for you, and do you love your parents and stuff. And so the parents heard that, and like the parents were shocked about, because one kid said that his mom works too much and doesn't spend enough time with him.
So why are you getting so emotional?
Because
What
Growing
did Jay
up.
say?
it's growing up, my mom, I did have certain times where my mom and dad, we walked every afternoon, and we went to the park. So I do remember similar things, but I also remember that she had to work, and my dad worked during the day and she worked at night. So there was always, and it started as I started growing up. And then after my brother was born, they had to like do it less because of my brother's issue. So, I don't know, and then we moved here to have a better life. And then my dad always worked, and then my mom stayed home. So we never really would get that time anymore as a family. So,
Okay. But what is that doing to you? What did that study trigger?
me and my son's relationship. Even though my son, he like, every time he sees me, he's happy when he gets home. And I'm so, like Trisha said, I want to go out with him and do stuff with him, but it's just like, I'm so angry and depressed and stuff, that I put it to the
Are
side.
we really that surprised as parents as to what our children would say behind closed doors about what they want from us?
I'm
No.
not, I wouldn't be surprised. I know my daughter would have some stuff to say, trust me.
I don't
She
think
tells
we're
me.
that surprised. I think that's why you're getting so emotional. It's because you want to be doing more that you think that he needs or wants. Our children, just like all human beings, want stuff. But at the end of the day, the only thing that people really need is love. And I'm going to wrap up class by recommending a movie. Movie is called The Room.
Is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix.
Right?
Yeah, because if it's on Netflix, I can't see it. That or Amazon. It's called The Room. It's intense. It's sad. It's gonna make you cry.
Oh, man.
It's
What is it
emotional,
I've been trying not to.
The Room.
When it's happy.
okay? And the premise of the story is this mother and her child who are locked in a room for, I think, 5-6 years.
Oh, man, that's horrible.
So you can watch the first half hour and then stop it.
Is that the one she puts him like is dead in a
Mhm.
apartment?
Oh, wow.
So,
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
the trailer.
Okay. Oh, that's the trailer.
so
That's the trailer? The
I
trailer of the
think
movie?
we're not surprised as parents what our children want from us, but we need to remember what we as humans, because we're all children, what children need. It really just is love, people. All of us screw up. All of us have screwed up, and all of us will continue to screw up. But if you can keep going back and just saying, I'm loving you, or trying to demonstrate in the best way possible love, the other person feels that.
I'm so stupid, I told him that I'll support him in any way and every way. He's friggin' too.
That's not stupid.
That's
though.
okay, but why is that stupid?
You're feeling it and you're expressing it. Even if he doesn't get it, that was a moment you had.
You know what?
That was for you, not for him.
Yeah.
Whatever
I'm
you're
feeling-
doing right now, it's for you, because he doesn't know. He's not gonna
No,
remember.
I'm feeling this way mostly is because my mom, when she found out about the whole gay thing about my brother, she called me in and she's like, did you hear? And like, what do you think of that? And then another time, he's not really paying attention in class. He's had to repeat classes. And she's just like, I know you can do better. And then she calls me in and tells him my whole life story. And like, you saw what she went through, like giving her example through me. And then I told her when the whole gay thing, I was like, he's 23. I mean, who cares? If he wants to do that thing, he does it. If he
And
does-
those are your opinions, and she
Yeah.
has hers, and they're never gonna be
Yeah.
mutual. They're just not. And that's part of understanding that the world, there's gonna be people that see things the way you do, and there's people that don't. And not trying to change the other, and not having people
But she
trying to
wants to
change you.
change my opinions. and
But
me.
that's where you become responsible. Taking personal responsibility for what you allow other people to make you feel. No one can make you feel any particular way. There's still a choice there. Okay?
So is it normal to just shut down, shut the door to that person so that way you can just continue
Remember
to
last month,
focus?
the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Unfortunately, shutting down, and it's one of the disasters in relationships. Not only marriage, but just in general. Because criticism, no one wants criticism. We just want love. We want to be understood. That's just the reality
Can
of
it be
it.
like a healthy thing though, where you're just like, okay, I'm just not gonna deal with this, and I'm gonna focus on what I have to do instead of, like, is that a healthy approach to it, or is there something?
Well, sometimes that's your only option, is to disconnect from that person completely. But there's still some inner work that has to be done, because if that person is still getting to you, then it's still something inward that needs to be looked at.
Ooh.
But sometimes that might be the only solution temporarily.
Oh, I like my temporary solution.
So Thursday, we'll wrap up with the few things that I have, and then we'll do chakras. And now we're gonna do astrology if you wanna stay.